My old mining friend faced racist bullies at the pub. I revealed he's a retired judge. It sounded like a line you'd find in a sensationalist news article. Yet here I was, standing outside Oakwood Park, the sun dipping low, casting long shadows across the grass. Leonard Carter, an elderly black man with a radiant smile and a lifetime of wisdom, was sat alone on a bench. He'd just finished his daily walk when a group of teenagers approached, whooping like they owned the place. They roamed like wolves, belligerent and careless. At first, their laughter sounded innocent, but as they drew closer, their intent became clear. The leader, a burly boy with a baseball cap spun backward, snarled a few words that sent a shiver up my spine. "Hey, old man, you lost or something?" Leonard looked up, brows furrowed, but head held high. He was used to comments from his years on the bench, but this felt different, raw and ugly. They didn't stop there. They surrounded him, bones held high. Record! The words they hurled were venomous, racial slurs flying like projectiles. My heart raced. I wanted to intervene, to shout, to roar in defense of my friend, but a chilling sense of helplessness washed over me. Leonard remained stoic, his face a mask of dignity, yet I could see the tension in his hands. A tight grip on the armrest, fingers trembling slightly. "Go back to where you came from," one of them yelled, and a hush fell over the park, as if the world had paused. That's when I noticed other park goers, faces twisted in discomfort, some shock, and a few even murmuring their disdain. Yet none moved to help. A silence enveloped the scene, heavy with tension, and I could almost hear Leonard's heartbeat, echoing the injustice of it all. Soon, a video of the harassment would sail across social media, spreading like wildfire. Leonard, the once invincible judge who had spent decades fighting for justice, now the object of their cruelty. What was becoming a local scandal was also. Minutes later, Leonard gathered his composure and walked away. Though the aftermath clung to him like a shadow, I could see the weight of their words pressing down on his shoulders. He was not just retreating. He was retreating from a battle he had once fought valiantly in a courtroom. I felt a knot in my throat. Nobody should have to endure that. Yet, in that moment of despair, a spark ignited in me. Angela, Leonard's daughter, would not let this slide. She would demand accountability. As I watched Leonard shuffle away, the children's laughter still echoing in my ears, I wondered, how far would Angela go for her father? Was she ready to unmask the apathy surrounding her? Just then, a new wave of shouts erupted in the park, and my heart raced once more. This fight for justice was just beginning. But how could it unfold against a backdrop of disbelief and hatred? Hey, before you continue with this incredible story, I have an important warning for you! Many subscribers have reported that YouTube has removed their subscriptions without warning. Take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content coming up. And while you're at it, leave a like to help me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, what city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who is part of this community. Your participation makes a difference. Let's interact. Just then, a new wave of shouts erupted in the park, and my heart raced once more. It felt as if the air had thickened, a storm brewing not in the skies, but right here among us. Tension gripped the crowd, eyes darting nervously. Then it happened. A deafening crack echoed, piercing through the murmur of disbelief. A gunshot. The sound ricocheted off the park's trees, a sudden explosion that froze me in place. The teenagers, who had just been reveling in their cruelty, scattered like leaves in the wind, eyes wide, panic replacing bravado. My breath caught in my throat as I turned to see Leonard. He had collapsed, crumpling to the ground like a wilting flower. "Leonard!" I screamed, rushing toward him. My feet barely touched the ground. I could barely comprehend what had just happened. The world spun around me, voices blending into a cacophony of fear. I knelt beside him, cradling his head in my hands, feeling the warmth of blood seeping through my fingers. His eyes were open, but the light within them was dimming fast. "Stay with me, Leonard!" I shouted, my voice jagged with desperation. He blinked, confusion dancing in his gaze. Even in this moment of chaos, his dignity remained. He tried to smile, but it faltered. His lips trembled as pain coursed through him. The crowd, once apathetic, was now panicking. People were shouting for someone to call 911, for help, for anything. I could feel eyes watching, some horrified, some shaking their heads as if in disbelief. The teenagers who had tormented him were gone, but their laughter echoed still, haunting, mocking. As the sirens wailed in the distance, I felt a hand on my shoulder, and there stood Angela, Leonard's daughter. Her eyes were wide, raw with fear, and for a fleeting moment, I saw the same strong woman who had fought countless battles for her father's legacy. "They've got to fix him!" she gasped, her voice trembling, filled with a blend of agony and determination. "They've got to!" In that instant, as a movement swept through the crowd, something shifted. I heard murmurs of, "Who would do this? Why him?" And he was just sitting there. Then, a figure emerged from the throng, tall, imposing, with a familiar gait. It was Officer Banks, a man known to be tough yet fair, someone Leonard had respected. He was now kneeling, focused, a steady rock amidst the chaos. An officer had found the shooter, a young boy no older than the ones who had harassed Leonard earlier. He stood wide-eyed, trembling, as if realizing the weight of his reckless action. The crowd whispered in shock, disbelief washing over their faces. How could this boy be so cruel, yet so foolish? "Is he going to make it?" Angela cried. And in that moment, amidst the chaos, I watched as Officer Banks looked up at Leonard, his expression hardening with a resolve I had never seen before. "I won't let this go unpunished," he declared, his voice steady. But then something flickered in his eyes, a hint of recognition. My heart plummeted as I realized who that boy was. The son of someone I'd known. A face that had once smiled at Leonard in gratitude for his years of service. The world started to close in. Questions spiraled in my mind. How could this happen? A moment shattered, relationships redefining, secrets about to explode. This wasn't just a random act of violence. It was something far worse. What had I missed? What lay buried beneath this brutal surface? Just then, as the sirens drew closer, I felt the ground shift beneath me, and all I could think was, could justice truly rise from this? As sirens wailed, the crowd thickened, a mass of faces blurring with fear and curiosity. My heart thundered in my chest, and I could barely hear myself over the rising chaos. Angela's desperate gaze stayed locked on her father, the weight of the moment heavy between us. Time slowed down. Officer Banks was leaning over Leonard, the frantic crowd melting into the background. I could see the sheen of sweat on his brow, feel the electric pulse of dread hanging in the air. The boy, the shooter, cowered, his wide eyes darting around in panic, the realization of what he'd done settling like a noose around his throat. But in the midst of my swirling thoughts, something caught my eye. To the side of the crowd, a figure slipped away, almost unnoticed. A woman, cloaked in a long coat, her hat pulled low over her face, moving swiftly. An instinct pulled at me. I needed to follow. "Where are you going?" I called out, my voice breaking over the noise. She paused, just for a heartbeat, glancing back at me. But the moment stretched, her silhouette barely visible. Then she bolted, weaving through the throngs. Without thinking, I pushed through the crowd, fear igniting a sense of urgency. Why was she running? What did she know? I followed her, dodging the sea of horrified faces and indignant murmurs. The weight of what had just happened pressed down on me, but something felt off. This wasn't just about Leonard anymore. It was spiraling into something darker. My heart raced as she led me through the park and toward an alley shrouded in shadows. I called out again. "Stop, please!" My breath hitched as she rounded the corner. In an instant, I rounded the corner too, and there she was. With her back turned, I could see her clutching something tightly against her chest, the edge of a brown envelope peeking out. "Who are you?" I demanded, my voice trembling with both fear and determination. She turned slowly, revealing a familiar face. My stomach dropped. Ella Miller, a name I hadn't heard in years. She had been part of Leonard's life too. Someone from long ago who had drifted away, an old friend. But there was a look in her eyes I'd never seen. Fear mixed with something deeper. Shadows hovering behind her gaze. "You shouldn't have followed me," she said, her voice low. "You don't understand." "What don't I understand?" I pressed. "Was it you? Did you know what was going to happen?" Her expression darkened. "You wouldn't believe me if I told you." Then she ripped open the envelope, revealing photographs. I caught my breath as dozens of images spilled out. Leonard, yes, but alongside him were faces I recognized from the community, all gathered in a conspiratorial haze. "Look," she urged, her finger pointing at one particularly shocking photo. An image of Leonard standing beside a man I knew too well. The mayor. They were laughing together. But layered behind that easy joy was something else. Something sinister. They weren't just friends, were they? I whispered, realization crashing over me like a wave. Ella's eyes were wide. I didn't want to believe it. But they've been hiding things, drug dealings, intimidation. This was more than just an old judge and a public figure. They were involved in something dangerous, and now It's all come back to haunt them. Panic twisted my gut. What are you saying? This has nothing to do with the shooting. But her voice dropped to a whisper, filled with dread. You're wrong. The boy who shot him, he came looking for justice. He discovered something he shouldn't have. Questions seized my mind, colliding into chaos. What had Leonard been a part of? What was the truth hidden beneath the surface, waiting to unravel? Just as I opened my mouth to delve deeper, my phone buzzed violently in my pocket. I pulled it out, eyes wide with disbelief. It was a message from Angela. Get back to Dad. The shooter's not just a victim. He's our link to something bigger. Fear spiked through me, and as I looked back at Ella, I realized we were standing on the precipice of something monumental, spinning out of reach. What have we unleashed? I asked, breathless, and in that moment, all I could think was, who truly was Leonard Carter? Just as I opened my mouth to delve deeper, my phone buzzed violently in my pocket. I pulled it out, eyes wide with disbelief. It was a message from Angela. Get back to Dad. The shooter's not just a victim. He's our link to something bigger. Fear spiked through me, and as I looked back at Ella, I realized we were standing on the precipice of something monumental, spinning out of reach. What have we unleashed? I asked, breathless, and in that moment, all I could think was, who truly was Leonard Carter? A sudden, piercing scream cut through the air behind us. I turned, a jolt of adrenaline surging through my veins. The crowd, once a looming cloud of disbelief, erupted in chaos. People were running, eyes wide with horror, pointing toward the park's entrance. What's happening? I shouted, my heart thumping wildly as I grabbed Ella's arm. She was frozen in shock, staring as if she had seen a ghost. Then I caught sight of a group of police officers rushing through the throng, faces taut, guns drawn. Everyone clear the area, one shouted, his voice a thunderclap amid the rising panic. A chill washed over me. I could feel something terrible approaching. In that moment, I caught a glimpse of a figure fleeing, tall, cloaked in shadow, darting past the trees toward the street. Who is that? I asked, pulling Ella along as I tried to keep my eyes on the mysterious figure. She remained silent, her expression shifting from shock to dawning recognition. Oh no, she whispered, voice trembling. Suddenly the figure turned, illuminated briefly by a light overhead. My breath caught in my throat. It was the boy who had shot Leonard. Eyes wide with terror, he stumbled, then turned back to the park, his hands raised in a gesture of surrender. Before I could process what was happening, another shot rang out. It wasn't from his gun. It echoed from the distance, clear as day. The boy fell to the ground, clutching his side, blood blooming on his shirt as he crumpled like a rag doll. No! I gasped, the world tilting beneath my feet. My eyes darted to the crowd, fear displayed on each face, whispers of disbelief rippling through the throng. Parents pulled their children close. The atmosphere was dense with panic and confusion. But then, through the chaos, I spotted Angela breaking free from the crowd, eyes ablaze with fury. Get him! She shouted, pointing at the boy on the ground. He has to pay. I didn't understand. Wasn't he already a victim in this twisted tale? I turned to Ella, desperation pooling within me. What's happening? We need to help him. But then, a loud voice boomed from the distance. A figure emerged, a man in a three-piece suit. The mayor. He stepped toward the scene, like he owned the ground beneath him, his expression fierce. "Everyone, step back. This is a matter for the authorities." I felt Ella's hand tighten on my arm. No, he's mixed up in this. He knows what's coming." "What do you mean?" I turned to her, fear skimming the top of my consciousness. Then, in a chilling whisper, she revealed. The mayor was involved in what happened to Leonard. They were partners before. They made deals. He's protecting himself. Everything I fought shattered. The mayor, once seen as a pillar of the community, now loomed before me like a shadowy puppet master, pulling strings, leading to this chaos. The boy, the shooter, merely an unfortunate pawn in this ghastly game. My heart raced. I looked back at the group of police officers, the boy bleeding on the ground, and then at Angela, whose rage was palpable. Would she understand the depth of this betrayal? I felt a weight in my chest like never before, and the urgency of the moment pressed down on me. "Angela, we need to know what's really happening before it's too late," I cried, but her eyes were locked on the mayor, refusing to see the truth unfolding before us. A sudden explosion rocked the street, a flash tearing through the air, and I realized it was not a gunshot. A vehicle had just crashed, sending debris flying. A moment of stunned silence followed, echoes of the aftermath mingling with confusion. In that instant, I understood. Nothing was what it seemed anymore. Fear coursed through my veins as I whispered the question that hung heavy in the air. Who can we trust now? Suddenly, everything seemed to spiral once more into chaos, and the answer felt just out of reach. A sudden explosion rocked the street, a flash tearing through the air, and I realized it was not a gunshot. A vehicle had just crashed, sending debris flying. A moment of stunned silence followed, echoes of the aftermath mingling with confusion. In that instant, I understood. Nothing was what it seemed anymore. Fear coursed through my veins as I whispered the question that hung heavy in the air. Who can we trust now? Suddenly, everything seemed to spiral once more into chaos, and the answer felt just out of reach. But in that moment, I caught a glance from Angela. Her eyes glimmered with a fierce urgency. A new determination etched across her face. "We need to get him out of here," she shouted, pointing at the boy on the ground. There was no time to lose. I turned back to the chaos. The mayor was shouting, waving his arms, trying to regain control. But panic had thrown him off balance. The crowd surged, some eager to flee, others drawn in by morbid curiosity. Officers barked orders, demanding everyone step back. But the fear was palpable, like a thick mist hanging over us. And just then, it happened. From the shadows of the alley, a figure emerged, tall, cloaked in dark, and moving with a purpose that sent chills down my spine. My heart raced as I whispered, "What's going on?" But the words barely escaped my lips. "Stay down!" Ella yelled, suddenly shoving me to the ground, her face a mask of raw fear. I hit the pavement hard, my breath knocked out of me. Chest tight. Without thinking, I looked up. There he was, the man who had haunted my nightmares. The one I had seen in those photos, standing with Leonard and the mayor. He was aiming something at the boy on the ground. "Wait!" I gasped, the sound barely escaping before the barrel of a gun erupted. A deafening shot rang out. The world slowed, and for a moment, it felt like time stopped. But then, the boy didn't fall. Instead, something exploded from his chest. A burst of crimson splattering against the pavement, staining everything like a horrific painting. Stunned gasps echoed through the crowd, shock hanging heavy in the air. The boy's eyes widened as realization set in. He stumbled backward, clutching at the wound, and suddenly, chaos erupted. People screamed, some running in every direction, desperately seeking the safe ground that felt miles away. But through it all, my eyes remained locked on that cloaked figure. He turned, face half obscured, and I recognized him in an instant. It was Tommy, the mayor's son. That devoted kid from the local community, always eager to help. "What have you done?" I shouted, my voice breaking, a mix of disbelief and horror. I searched his expression. It was an empty shell, void of the playful spark I remembered. It was then I realized something profound. He wasn't just a scared boy caught in a web, he was part of it all. Tommy glanced at the boy crumpled on the ground, guilt flooding his eyes. Then he turned away, shoulders trembling, and vanished into the crowd like a ghost slipping through the past. I scrambled to my feet, chasing after him, confusion gnawing at my gut. "Tommy!" I called, breathless. But he blended into the chaos like a whisper lost in the wind. Then, through the fray, I turned back to Angela, her face white with shock, terror morphing into a sharp determination. "What were you saying?" she asked, barely above a whisper. "No one's who they seem, Angela," I shouted, grasping her arms, urgency spilling out of me. "What if it's all interconnected? The mayor, it's all a facade!" But even as the weight of those words sank in, a new sound pulled my attention. A siren howled closer, and I felt the ground shift beneath us again. Words rushed out of her. "We need to go! Now!" But a chill ran through me as I thought of Leonard lying there. The gravity of it all threading through my mind. "Do we even know the truth anymore?" I asked, heart pounding, thinking of what had just unfolded. But before she could respond, another deafening crash echoed. Another vehicle hurtling in our direction, veering dangerously amidst the crowd. The world felt like it was crumbling around us as I realized we were caught in something far bigger than ourselves. I squeezed Angela's hand, desperate to hold on. "We can't let this be the end. Not for him, not for any of us." But the chaos kept spiraling, and as the crowd scattered, the only question left hanging in the air was, were we even prepared for what was about to break? The crowd surged, an ocean of panic and chaos. People shouted, others cried. I felt Angela squeeze my hand tighter, fear spilling over into determination. "We have to protect him. Get him out of here." But as I peered through the throngs of frantic faces, a chill slithered down my spine. The figure I had seen earlier, Tommy, emerged again, eyes darting, visibly shaken. He was back, but there was something different about him. "Tommy?" I called, desperate to make him stay put. But he didn't hear me. He pushed through the crowd, moving away with a sense of purpose. "Where's he going?" Angela whispered, her brows knitted in confusion. "I don't know," I replied, heart racing. But we can't lose him again! Then it happened. The scene shifted as if someone pressed pause. A gunshot rang out again, this time sharp, purposeful, and terrifyingly close. My heart dropped, and I turned just in time to see Tommy pull a gun from his waistband. The world shrank, leaving just the two of us standing in that moment, frozen in disbelief. "Tommy, no!" I shouted, but my voice was swallowed by the madness. Angela gripped my arm, her expression a mix of shock and horror. "He aimed it at the ground, but that didn't save him." In a heartbeat, Officer Banks appeared. "Get back!" Tommy shouted, his voice strained, panic slicing through every word. "I'm not gonna hurt you," Banks pleaded, his hands raised in an attempt to defuse the situation. The tension felt electric, crackling in the air, thick enough to choke on. "Then don't come any closer." Tommy was breathing hard, eyes wild. He looked at the crowd, a reflection of fear and desperation deep within him. The mayor was moving in the distance, trying to regain his composure, barking orders. I could see the disbelief on his face as Tommy shifted his aim. In that second, clarity hit me. All those months of knowing Leonard, the quiet glances and laughing stories around the table, they were not just chance encounters. Tommy was not just the mayor's son. He was entangled in something bigger, something darker that had woven its way through our lives like a snare. Suddenly, as if someone hit a switch, a loud splash filled the air. A water balloon, a bright, shocking explosion of color, burst against the pavement nearby, splattering everything in a vibrant mess. Laughter erupted, echoing off the walls of panic, an absurd reaction binding the chaos into a jarring moment. "Seriously," Angela shouted, disbelief flooding her voice. But it was enough. The distraction broke Tommy's focus, just long enough for Officer Banks to take a step forward. "Tommy, this isn't the way. Come on!" But that's when it happened. As if in slow motion, I saw Tommy's finger tightening around the trigger, but it wasn't aimed at Officer Banks. It was directed somewhere else entirely. A figure had slipped into view, a woman, emerging from the shadows, with a wild look of urgency in her eyes. "Mom!" Tommy screamed, and in that split second, all my instincts crashed together. The world snapped back into focus as the crowd recoiled, eyes wide with shock. I couldn't register the sound, the gasp, the murmurs, the whispers of disbelief that swept through like a wave. Before I realized, the woman was Angela's mother, lost to us for years. This wasn't just any reunion. It was a revelation that could shatter everything. No one had expected this. I felt Angela's breath catch in her throat. "What? How?" etc. And in that blink of uncertainty, in the chaos of a moment, Tommy's gun fell from his grip, clattering against the pavement like a shattered promise. Stunned silence enveloped us, all of us, caught in this new reality. What had we stumbled into? The questions raced in my mind, hearts wide open, waiting for the truth to fall. Who truly was Tommy? And what secrets bound our families together in this night of chaos? The crowd was frozen, a tableau of surprise and confusion painting the scene. Tommy's gun clattered to the ground, a symbol of all that had gone wrong, and for a heartbeat, silence reigned. Angela's eyes were wide, locked onto her mother, who had stepped into the chaos like an unexpected storm. "Mom," she whispered, disbelief clouding her voice. "Is that really you?" But as her mother took a step forward, a flash, of recognition passed through the crowd. Gasps erupted. Whispers raced like wildfire. That can't be her. She was gone for years. The reality of the moment hit hard. But it didn't stop there. Something dark flickered in Angela's eyes. Confusion mixing with an undercurrent of anger. I felt the adrenaline surge, my instincts telling me to get closer, to process this shocking breach of normalcy. But then, almost instinctively, I looked past them. There, in the shadows, a figure stepped out. Another person from our past. It was Jacob, the boy I remembered from childhood. A ghost reappearing after all these years. But he looked different now. Wild-eyed and frantic. The crowd murmured louder, drawn to his presence. "What's happening?" someone whispered. "How do they know each other?" "Stop!" Angela shouted, her voice slicing through the chatter. But a crack echoed above her. Another gunshot. This time it echoed like thunder. The crowd erupted into chaos once again. People screamed. Bodies scrambled for safety and security. I felt Angela's fingers dig into my arm, but I couldn't take my eyes off the scene. Tommy was on his knees, visible shock etched across his face, no longer the troubled boy from before. "Get down!" I shouted, but the moment felt surreal. It all seemed like a bad dream. Then I saw him, Officer Banks, charging forward, face whipped with a blend of authority and concern. His voice boomed, "Everyone back! This is a police matter!" But in the flurry of confusion, I caught sight of something glinting near Tommy, a knife, sharp and silver, reflecting the streetlights. An electric tingle shot through my veins as I processed the urgency. He wasn't just a boy caught up in a moment. He was a player in something darker. "Tommy, don't!" I yelled, as the boy's hand closed around it. But before I could react, the air shifted. Tommy turned to the crowd, eyes wild. "You don't understand! It's not what you think! They're all in on it! My dad, the mayor, he's been covering up everything!" The words hung in the spaces between beats, thick and palpable. My heart raced. The mayor himself intertwining so explicitly with this mess of secrets. Reality blurred around us, tightening like a vice. "Easy, son. Just put that down," Officer Banks attempted, stepping closer, filled with both authority and concern. And I saw Jacob lurch forward, his eyes filled with panic. "Tommy, listen to him. This isn't the way." But Tommy shook his head fiercely. "You don't get it. If I give this up, everything will collapse. They've buried the truth. My mom, she—" Before he could finish, another shot reverberated through the air. But this one felt assuredly different. It wasn't aimed at anyone in the crowd. The cloak of chaos grew heavier as I suddenly recognized the voice behind the gunfire. "Enough!" It was the mayor, emerging from the shadows, dark and menacing, with a look that could freeze fire. The crowd pulled back instinctively as he stepped into the light, eyes locked on his son. "Dad," Tommy breathed, the knife slipping from his hand, crashing into the pavement. "Don't! You've made your choice." The mayor's voice was low, resonating with authority that shocked the air. But the surprise wasn't over. Then it happened. Angela's mother stepped forward, her hands raised, face calm yet fierce. "You didn't even know, did you?" she said slowly, the weight of her words trembling in the air. "You were a pawn all along, Tommy. All of us were." What deep-seated truth lay hidden beneath her gaze? The ground felt like it was cracking open, and as I watched everyone's expression morph into confusion, it began to sink in. This was more than a shocking reunion. It was an unveiling, a revelation that could turn the entire world they knew into ashes. The crowd fell silent, eyes darting from the mayor to Angela's mother, taking in the enormity of what had just been said. "Why?" Tommy's voice cracked, his expression shifting from defiance to bewilderment. But the echo of that question hung between us like a chasm, leaving only uncertainty. What secrets had been buried beneath the veneer of everyday life? What darkness awaited to be unveiled? And in that heart-stopping moment, I couldn't help but wonder how many lives had been forever altered by these layers of deceit. And what would happen next? The crowd was frozen, a tableau of surprise and confusion painting the scene. Tommy's gun clattered to the ground, a symbol of all that had gone wrong, and for a heartbeat, silence reigned. Angela's eyes were wide, locked onto her mother, who had stepped into the chaos like an unexpected storm. "Mom?" she whispered, disbelief clouding her voice. "Is that really you?" But as her mother took a step forward, a flash of recognition passed through the crowd. Gasps erupted. Whispers raced like wildfire. "That can't be her! She was gone for years!" The reality of the moment hit hard, but it didn't stop there. Something dark flickered in Angela's eyes, confusion mixing with an undercurrent of anger. I felt the adrenaline surge, my instincts telling me to get closer, to process this shocking breach of normalcy. But then, almost instinctively, I looked past them. There, in the shadows, a figure stepped out, another person from our past. It was Jacob, the boy I remembered from childhood, a ghost reappearing after all these years. But he looked different now, wild-eyed and frantic. The crowd murmured louder, drawn to his presence. "What's happening?" someone whispered. "How do they know each other?" "Stop!" Angela shouted, her voice slicing through the chatter. But a crack echoed above her. Another gunshot rang out, but it wasn't aimed at anyone in the crowd. The ground shifted beneath us again, the air thickening with tension. I could feel my heart thumping in my chest as the crowd pulled back instinctively, a wave of fear rippling through the throng. What now? I thought, panic weaving into every inch of me. Then I saw him, the mayor, emerging from the shadows, darkness cloaking him like a heavy fog. He stepped forward, his eyes moving from his son to Angela's mother, his expression contorted in a mix of rage and disbelief. "You think you can just come back after all these years?" His voice was thunderous, shaking the ground. Tommy's face twisted, caught between confusion and a fierce determination. "You've been lying, Dad." But then the unexpected happened. A voice, low and tinged with pain, broke through the chaos. "He's right." It was Angela's mother. "Your father isn't who you think he is." Everyone turned, stunned. As she continued, her words spun an intricate web of truth. "I was sent away for a reason. To protect you all. To keep you from what he really does. The corruption, the violence. It runs deeper than you can see." "Sent away?" Tommy shouted. "You mean you abandoned us?" Suddenly, a figure behind the mayor stepped into view. Officer Banks. His face was grave, tension etched deep into his features. Angela, I need you to listen too. There's truth in what she's saying. My heart sank. What was happening? It was too much. The pieces fell deeper together, but I felt lost. Then, in a shocking twist, the mayor's phone buzzed in his pocket, drawing all eyes. He pulled it out, glancing at the screen. His face paled, a tremor in his hand. No, it can't be. The words barely made it out, his voice trailing into what felt like a dark abyss. But before anyone could respond, a loud explosion erupted from the far corner of the park. Everyone turned instinctively toward the sound, shockwaves rippling through the crowd as smoke erupted, obscuring the air with a thick fog. In that fleeting moment, chaos reigned. People screamed, scrambling for cover. "Get down!" I shouted, pulling Angela close. But the scene was spiraling out of control. And then Tommy lunged forward, seizing the moment. "I have to know! I can't let this keep going!" With a sudden burst of courage, he pushed through, darting toward the mayor. But then, emotions swirling, as if caught in a tempest, the explosion revealed a horrific truth. A man in black, darting from the shadows, confidence shrouded in danger. Everyone's eyes widened, breath caught in the chaos. The figure locked eyes with the mayor, realization dawning like a violent storm. "You thought I was gone, didn't you? You made your moves, but now it's time to pay for the sins." The crowd gasped collectively, voices rising in shock. Who was this new player, sinister and fierce? The connection felt so heavy, like a noose tightening around the very fabric of reality. But just then, it felt as if the ground was trembling beneath us, a crack breaking the illusion that had held us captive. "What did you do?" I cried out, my heart racing. And in that moment of revelation, everything, every supposed truth, every hidden connection, every bond we thought we had, shattered, leaving us stranded in a storm of uncertainty, desperately grappling with a question that might change everything. Who really was the puppet master hiding in the shadows? The crowd recoiled, a palpable shock racing through us. The mayor stood there, a dark silhouette against the chaos, anger lighting his face. He was a storm, ready to explode. Angela's mother, lost for years, faced him, her eyes fierce. "You can't keep running from this," Angela's mother shouted. "This is your reckoning." But before any response could materialize, Tommy turned his gaze to his father. Confusion etched on his features. "What does she mean? What have you been hiding?" "Enough of this," the mayor barked, pinning his eyes on his son. And in that moment, I felt every ounce of tension in the crowd surge forward. People held their breath, waiting for an answer, as murmurs swept through us. Then, with a quick movement, the mayor pulled out a small device from his pocket. A remote. "You think you're safe here?" He pressed a button, and suddenly, the park lights flickered, then dimmed. Panic ignited anew, darkness swallowing us, shouts erupted, and it felt like the ground beneath us was shifting. I heard whispers of "What's happening? Get out!" But I could see nothing. Figures moved in shadows, panic distorting familiar shapes. A burst of light blinked back on, and the scene before me sent icy dread seeping into my veins. In that moment, it was clear. Little Tommy wasn't the only one harboring danger. The mayor's face twisted with a sinister smile as he spoke into the darkness. She was always good at hiding. Then, without warning, a figure launched from the shadows. It was Jacob, his face twisted in fear. "Get away from him!" he shouted, eyes darting across the crowd, looking for allies. But all motion seemed frozen, stuck in disbelief. "Jacob!" I screamed, but it was too late. Just behind him, a second figure emerged, silent and steady. A loud bang. I turned, just in time to see Officer Banks pitch forward, a look of surprise frozen on his face, blood blossoming on his uniform. Gasps echoed throughout the park. "Why?" Tommy shouted. "Why would you do that?" In that heartbeat, the mayor's grip tightened. The truth is, everyone here is guilty of something. I felt my stomach twist. What truth? I wanted to scream. This wasn't just about Leonard or the corruption. This had roots far deeper than any of us had realized. And then, lightning struck. The power flickered again, this time less controlled, sparking overhead lights into shocking, strobing flashes. People screamed, scrambled, but my gaze was locked on Angela's mother. "Enough!" she yelled, voice rising above the chaos. "This is your chance, Tommy. You could end this now." End what?" Tommy's voice broke, wavering under the weight of it all. Then, in a shocking twist, the mayor turned, as if sensing presence lurking in the edges. Something shifted. Fear morphed into recognition. Shoulders stiffened. Silence fell heavy. "Monica," he whispered, eyes wide. It struck me like a blow. "Monica?" I echoed, realizing this was no ordinary revelation. Angela's mother stepped forward, her voice cutting through the chaos like a knife. "You see, I wasn't just sent away. I was born into all of this, it seems, and I was supposed to keep the darkness at bay. But I can't protect you anymore, Tommy." Shockwaves rippled through the onlookers. I could see them grappling with what this meant. "Wait," I stuttered. "You knew? You were part of it?" But before she could respond, a muffled shout broke the tension. "There's no time!" From the far end of the park, another group of figures emerged, armed and determined. They moved swiftly, their presence igniting an air of confrontation. A wave of dread crashed over me. Would this end in blood? The crowd was a whirlwind of fear and chaos. People running in all directions. I felt something shift in the air. A vibration of tension, as if the very fabric of our reality was coming unspooled. The question loomed larger than any before. Who was really on which side? As I turned to Angela, our eyes met, and in that brief moment, I realized nothing would ever be the same again. What fate awaited us now? The chaos roared around them. But in the eye of the storm stood Angela's mother, her voice slicing through the noise. "You think you can keep this hidden?" she demanded, glaring at the mayor. "The truth is out. People deserve to know." The mayor's eyes flickered between anger and fear, the facade of control slipping. "You don't understand what you're doing. You're risking everything," he spat, stepping closer, his tone sharp like a knife. "No," Tawny shot back, standing resolute. I'm risking nothing. I won't let you keep lying to us. This ends tonight. His hands trembling, he took a bold step toward his father, defiance radiating from him like heat. Suddenly, the lights dimmed again, flickering erratically, as if they too were reacting to the mounting tension. The crowd gasped, stepping back, caught between fear and fascination. Then, out of the shadows, Officer Banks charged forward, a shield against impending disaster. Everyone, back away! We need to secure this area. His voice boomed, but it was grounded in authority, urging the crowd to listen, to trust. Angela's mother gazed at him, her expression shifting, softening slightly. "You know what he's capable of, don't you?" she asked, her voice thick with emotion. "You can't let him control you." Officer Banks met her gaze, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. "What do you want me to do?" "Stand with us," she pleaded, her voice breaking. "Stand against the darkness." In a heartbeat, it felt like the world shifted. Some in the crowd started to murmur their support, eyes sparking with defiance. "We deserve the truth," a voice called from the back. "No more secrets." The ripple of courage spread, igniting flames of hope. But even in that moment, a chilling laugh pulled us back. The mayor, his confidence restored slightly, grinned darkly. "You think the truth will save you? It'll destroy us all." "Maybe, but we deserve the chance," Angela replied, stepping forward. "You underestimate us." At that moment, the power surged back on, illuminating the park as if the dawn were breaking over the shadows. The figures in the crowd became visible again. Expressions varied: fear, hope, determination. Tommy, fueled by the encouragement around him, faced his father again. "I won't let you hurt anyone anymore. You can't keep controlling everything like it's a game." "Game? You call this a game?" The mayor's voice dripped with venom as he prepared to lash out. But just as his anger boiled, the sounds of sirens echoed in the distance, closing in. Faces shifted from shock to unease. The realization of impending judgment hung heavy in the air. "Time's up," Officer Banks muttered, steeling himself. The community was ready to reclaim their power, ready to hold their leaders accountable. And then, chaos struck again. From the alley, the tension broke as Jacob lunged forward with wild resolve. "We can't wait," he cried. "We have to act now!" With a swift movement, he grabbed Tommy's hand, pulling him free from the mayor's twisted clutches. The crowd held their breath, a standoff between light and dark, between truth and deceit. Angela's mother stood at the forefront, voice steady. "No more hiding. Let's bring this to light together." Suddenly, the atmosphere changed. The police arrived, their presence a storm of blue amid the chaos. Officer Banks stepped forward, securing the perimeter. "We need to arrest him," he said, gaze fixed on the mayor. But in this newfound clarity, something shifted. The mayor's bravado wavered. "Think about what you're doing," he hollered, desperation seeping into his tone. "You'll all regret this." "No," Angela said firmly, gripping Tommy's hand tightly. "We won't." With that, as the sirens blared and the officers moved in, I felt an overwhelming surge of hope. The air was thick with courage, with the promise of change, while the crowd rallied around one another. And for the first time, beneath the weight of our struggle, we could finally see the dawn of a new beginning rising from the ashes of betrayal and darkness. This is it! If you want to dive deeper into these incredible stories and never miss a moment, you must subscribe now. Hit that red button immediately. Your support makes a difference. Press that like button now to feed the algorithm and show your love for this community. Let's flood the comments section with your thoughts, reactions, and theories about this shocking ending. Don't wait 1 second longer to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to know what just went down. This is the time to show your support, and only true fans like you understand its importance.